Hello, everyone. So glad you're here today with me. Thank you to everyone who has signed up to attend my A Black Girl in a Royal World Coronation Breakfast. We have a few tickets left. If you're interested in seeing me on May 5th, hit me up, PDINA.net. Hope to see you there. Really, what is going on is very concerning because it's a follow-up to what I had been talking about when I talked about the partners that were with Archwell Foundation, how the partnerships are based on this whole idea of Meghan being this woman coming over from the UK, starting up this foundation to help like-minded charities. And the whole information behind the work that she's doing is in conjunction with help people who are suffering at the hands of people who want to hold people back or who have been held back because of racist ideology. Look at what happened to me within the royal family. It's very similar to when I went to the Women's Fund event that Meghan had, and I interviewed the women, and they talked about how Meghan, her whole message was around using your voice and being able to speak up against, those people in a power who want to hold you back, being encouraged to use your voice and don't let anything in this world tell you you can't do something. And she's trying to piece together this whole idea of being suppressed by the man and how she's been suppressed by the royals without even saying the royals. But you look at the opportunity that Meghan has had. She hasn't truly been held down for racist reasons when you look at everything that she's been able to accomplish. And out of nowhere, this information around racism, and there was this letter to Charles that was going out 2 years ago where she talked about this whole unconscious bias thing. And now the whole idea is, well, how did this letter get leaked to the public? This was 2 years ago. No one knew about her writing to Charles until just now. And I can only imagine that something that Meghan wanted to do, because she knew she wasn't going to go to the coronation, was to make sure that this letter that had been kept secret for 2 years gets suddenly released before the coronation to dredge up this animosity towards Charles, because now this letter is saying that the royal racist that was talked about during the Oprah interview was Charles, and how she said that it's not racism, it's unconscious bias. First of all, writing a letter to anybody about your unconscious bias is ridiculous, because inherently we all have this bias. We all have this unconscious bias. Why is she trying to dredge up something? Why is she trying to create something out of this? We all know the reason. And this is why I speak on it, because she's doing something that hurts people. It hurts people, and she wants to make this her moving stone to help get her to where she needs to be. Like, she's pushing so hard to get this stone moved, and she's creating a lot of hurt in the process. And by dredging this up, it brings in a lot of unnecessary strife that does not need to be before us all, especially in this moment right now before the coronation, the king's coronation that he's been waiting for his whole life, mind you. And now we're dealing with this letter that's just suddenly been leaked. And she's saying that she's the one that did not leak it. Okay, we're going to look at that. We are going to look at that. So we know that it's confirmed that Meghan took part in this correspondence 2 years ago, and Omen is saying that this was 4 years ago. Excuse me. It wasn't 4 years ago. It was 2 years ago. And they've reported that Charles had exchanged letters in the wake of this whole Harry and Meghan Oprah interview. Because I can imagine the king was livid beside himself upset. The Queen, I'm sure, was upset too during this time. The Telegraph said that the letters discussed the so-called royal races who allegedly had made these comments, the likely color of the unborn child's skin color. Now, the correspondence was thought to be one of factors behind the decision of Meghan not attending the coronation. And then Meghan comes out with a counter saying that that's ridiculous. I didn't make my decision not to come to the coronation based on this letter and the response of the royals. It's getting really ugly now. It's getting really a lot of back and forth about, well, you said this. No, I said this. You almost don't even know what to believe. And I could imagine Meghan putting something out there and then saying, that's ridiculous, knowing that she's the one that put it out there, just because she's trying to bring all the attention back to her during this time of the coronation. So a source claimed that the letters make clear the identity of the senior member of the royal family that made the comment. Now, it is understood that both the king and the duchess acknowledged that the remarks that were discussed in the letter had nothing to do with malice. They weren't being mean. It wasn't done with animosity. It was a very cordial letter discussing what they talked about on the Oprah show. So Meghan's side of the correspondence made clear that she had never intended to specifically accuse the individual involved of being a racist, but was raising concerns about unconscious bias. And even if you are raising concern about unconscious bias, well, what are your unconscious biases, Meghan? You have them. Everybody has them. And your point is why? Why are we discussing this? Why are you putting this in a letter to the king? And when you talk about unconscious bias, it is racism. It is racism where you're racist that you don't know or realize that you're being racist. Okay. And if that's the case, why even bring it up? People have these biases naturally. We are inherently born with them. And it's when you realize that you have them, you try to do something about it, to be a better person, and to not let it be something that you allow to overtake you in your day-to-day decisions or how you look at people. And the whole point that it was even raised in itself is a mistake. The whole point that you even said it on Oprah is a mistake. You've caused something to happen that should have never happened. Point, period, blank. Keep your mouth shut. A statement by Meghan released via Twitter on the account of her biographer, Omid Scobie, said, "The Duchess of Sussex is going about her life in the present, not thinking about correspondence from 2 years ago related to the conversation from 4 years ago." It wasn't 4 years ago. There, you even lying in your statement. So what? This is 2023. This happened in 21. That's 2 years ago. I mean, you can't even get your statement out via your biographer without saying a lie. So any suggestion otherwise is false and frankly ridiculous. We encourage tabloid media and various other royal correspondents to stop the exhausting circus that they alone are creating. And no, I believe that Meghan is creating, because this is around the time period when she would create something like that for the sake of what we've known her to do in the past. That's just what she does. She does stuff like this because it's in her nature. So her insistence that she's focused on living in the present might seem contradictory to some, given that the couple we know have spent the last year working on this Netflix documentary. Because if you were really working on being in the present, that documentary would have been in the past. It would have never, ever come up in the present time that we're in right now, because it was just a few months ago when that documentary aired. So all these months after Oprah, you even still were working on the past, because it was the Oprah interview. Harry at the same time is working on his book. They're working on the documentary. She's doing things in the Cut magazine. There's this constant stream of media platforms that they're working on to keep it in the moment. They don't want to move on. So further developments, the London Times royal correspondent Valentine Lowe, he actually made an apology because he was suggesting that the Sussex camp had leaked the details of the letter to the Telegraph. And then he said on his Twitter, given the legal letters have been sent by the Sussex's lawyers as well as the palaces since the story was published, it seems I was wrong in assuming that it came from the Sussex's camp. Sorry to you all about that, but even more intriguing. Yes, it is intriguing. I could imagine that through a third source, they leaked this letter. Why is it being leaked now? Very, very convenient. And to the advantage, mind you, of Meghan, that it is leaked. to draw away from the king, create this negativity around the king during his coronation. Now, we all know that the legacy of the queen is what it is, and I doubt that she can tarnish it. But the idea, the mere fact that she is trying to do that she has the audacity to even suggest doing that is really troubling. That she wants to do something to put a stain on the legacy of the work of the monarchs, the queen and now the king. It should be very concerning to people, because how else would this letter come out? Why? The Daily Telegraph included allegations that Harry and Meghan believe that they were treated appallingly in the wake of the Queen's death, and that the Sussexes believe that the family member who made the skin color comment did not act with malice. Okay, you didn't act with malice, but I'm appalled at your behavior. You know what? Don't be appalled, because that's what happens when you act like a fool and you ain't got no sense in your head. That's how you need to be treated. That's being treated as a reflection of your actions. You are treated in such a way to coincide with how you have treated people. It's not like you've done nothing wrong and then suddenly people are being, oh, I'm appalled at your behavior at me. Why are you behaving this way at me? I've done nothing to you. Yes, you did. You did something to create people to treat you in this way appallingly. This is the sign of a person that's spoiled. They've done things in their lives. They've always gotten away with things, and they think that they can continue to get away with things now that they are in later years of life in a new family. So you can't trust anything that this couple says. We see that she's blaming Charles for being the royal racist. The letter has been leaked prior to the coronation. And I can imagine that this was planned by Meghan all along, because it fits in line with her behavior. This is how she behaves. And the whole idea that she's not coming to the coronation now, she didn't get anything that she wanted. This is how she's paying back the royals, because she didn't get what she wanted for the coronation. And she's upset. And she's pouting like a little child. That's what this is right here. Although we know that Harry was holding out for an apology from his family when he insisted that he wanted to reconcile with the King and the Prince of Wales. And, you know, the whole thing is you can't give in to Harry and Meghan's bullying behavior, because they are the ones that started this. They're the ones that need to be apologizing for how they've behaved. And until they can really reconcile with how they've behaved, there should be no apology. Absolutely not. Because if they cannot own up to how they've misbehaved during all of this, then nobody should recognize anything, because it all started with them. And if they have to apologize, the royals, if they have to apologize, all that they are doing is essentially fueling more bad behavior by Harry and Meghan. And at this point, the letter that has come out is saying that it is Charles, and you only can assume that it was Meghan and her people, somebody, some third party. You know how they like to do a skip over so it don't look like they're doing it. We know their game. Somebody leaked it. And so I would be, I think, with the most people that are assuming that Harry and Meghan are the ones that got this letter leaked, that it came out that Charles was the racist in the royal family that assumed that there would be concerns around the color of Archie's skin. And with that, Harry needs to just take his butt to the coronation, bring his butt back, and deal with his life living in Montecito for the rest of your life forever. Live away from your family, understanding that you're the one that has put yourself in a predicament that you can't even see the consequences of yet. You've done that, Harry. You alone with your wife.